Well, Ambassador Keshi, I would like to cast our minds back when a former Nigerian president came up with the expression, a homegrown democracy, probably in an attempt to excuse the inadequacies in our own democratic system. But then the question here is, what are the key lessons Nigeria has failed to learn from the experiences of countries in the developed world as far as the concept of democracy is concerned?
To start with, to start with, what is homegrown democracy? To start with, what is homegrown democracy? Look, the experience we have failed to learn is that we simply do not want our institutions to work, whether it is today's government or yesterday's government. Look, if you give somebody a responsibility, if you appoint somebody the head of an institution, and the mandate of that institution is very clear, for goodness sake, let that institution work. If that institution or agency or parastatal or government fails to work, you don't have to think twice before you dismiss, or reform that institution. And if you look at what is going on, we are having these problems because we fail to take a critical look at our institutions and the way they perform. Look, General said something before, and I was just sharing with him my experience that, look, he said something about the fact that we do not make critical reviews after every event to look at where we have failed and where we have succeeded and so on. And when you went off the break, I said to him, this is one of the criticisms I have against the Nigerian army. I worked with the Nigerian army in Sierra Leone. All the problems that the Nigerian army has today in fighting Boko Haram, they had it as far back as 1991, 1992. And today they are still having that problem. No food supply, no ammunition, no kits, no payment of this. 20 years later, the Nigerian military is still having that. When you think of some of these things, it's really a source for concern in this country that almost all our institutions are failing us. And why are they failing us? It boils down to the political leadership. And that's where the intellectual capacity comes in. You cannot sit down as a president and your organization is not serving you well, and you accept it either because, okay, the guy there is my brother or someone from my end of the country. For goodness sake, if our institutions begin to work as efficiently as they can and they uphold the rules, that is very important. They are fair, they are just, they are equitable to everybody. You will begin to see that things will work. Look at, I'm sorry to say this because some people will say, oh, he likes to quote the United States. But look at what's going on in the United States. Every institution in the United States challenges the president or checkmats the president when he goes wrong. He's gone to, he's declared an emergency where he shouldn't. They've gone to the courts to challenge him. Nothing has happened. Yes, I know we've not gotten to that stage. But the point is, if we do not start today to do such basic things, like making our institutions work, when exactly are we going to make them work? And it requires people with the knowledge of how to run organizations. It requires us, ensuring that the rules are obeyed. I also like to point out this, because I say this to people, that why is the financial sector doing reasonably well today? Simply because there are five institutions in this country supervising the financial sector. You have the central bank, particularly the banks. You have the central bank, you have SEC, you have about 5 of them. And every time they make sure that the financial sector, particularly the banks, obey the rules of the game. That's what is missing in the public sector. And that's why we are having this kind of situation that at any given time, the public sector messes up things for everybody. Because who is supervising the public sector? Practically nobody. The leadership that should be doing this doesn't pay much attention to the issues of efficiency, to the issues of leadership, good governance in all the various parastatals and agencies of government.
Dr. Joaba, I'll still stay with you. You've raised certain points about intellectual capacity and how focusing on that can help us to make the required change. But also, it's clear to all of us that there are certain steps that we should have taken, like firing people who have not performed in office. And it's obvious to everyone who thinks right that this person is not supposed to hold this office because they've not performed. And those changes have not been made. Those don't require exactly firepower, intellectual capacity.
It does. It does.
How?
Excuse me.
You see, I've listened to Ambassador talk, you know, about the diaspora and about processes, and then, but he ended it up with leadership, political leadership. If our problems sometimes are not lack of laws, but the lack of the willpower, the political willpower to implement these laws.
You said something, hold on, so that I can help put this in. You said something when we were on break, that once someone is appointed into office, all of a sudden we stop looking at his intellectual or his capacity to deliver.
That's where I'm coming to. You also, I want to connect all of these dots to, you know, the diaspora reconnection program that the ambassador talks about. You find out that the world as we speak today is diversifying to a knowledge-based economy. Right. You know, because it is knowledge that add processes. You know, if you get your political leadership right, like what we are attempting to do with the election, you find out that some of these, the willpower to fire would be there, the willpower to set structures and institutions that will now begin to drive these processes, that will drive this diversification would be there. And then you have people, knowledgeable people in place. And then the ambassador also talks about the diaspora coming to invest in some key sectors. Let me quickly give you, why not attempting to patronize channels, but I would also tell, there were days when we were, you know, confronted with were the public televisions, and so came the private television, and then channels started setting, you know, standard, and now it was like, you know, you now see there's a standard. Government really didn't need to set standards. You know, government now is trailing because you see the private investors coming on board to set standard of how it should be, and that was the some example he also gave with the hospitals. And so if you get your political leadership right and the processes are right, then all of these other minor issues will fall into place. But now what we have is that we have a system where government, you know, and government patronage is the biggest business. Once you are appointed into government offices, nobody's looking at your capacity to perform or the capacity to deliver. All they are saying is, oh yes, it's our turn to eat.
Exactly,
and
because
so
of the money
people
involved.
You have not seen for years will be sending you congratulatory messages. Yes, how do we get contracts now? How do we begin to, you know, and then also, like they say, power corrupt and absolute power corrupt, absolutely. People who should be questioning you begins to patronize you. So a governor once told me, do you know what it takes to see a governor? I said, because I'm not looking to see a governor. I'm not looking for a governor, and so I won't be one of those who will, you know, your father's age mates who will be buying to you because they believe with the stroke of the pen, you can, you know, make their life. But these are some of the challenges that we need to begin to look away from.
That's the point that we need to take a break right now. They're breathing down my neck from the control room there. Ambassador Joe Keshi, thank you very much for providing such fantastic angles to the issue of diaspora engagement in nation building. So far, we have to let you go rest right now. Thank you so very much for joining the program.